Hello and welcome to the local campaign, helping voters make an informed choice for the upcoming municipal election. I'm your host and moderator for tonight's debate, Dan Polishchuk. Tonight we have the Waterloo Regional Council debate for Kitchener. Out of the 9 candidates in this race, 4 will be elected. The candidates vying for this council seat are incumbents Elizabeth Clark, Tom Galloway, and Jeff Lorenz, as well as Michael Harris, Tom Hiller, and Fazia Mazar, Ted Martin, and Carrie Williams. Jason House is also running but was unable to attend tonight's debate. Speaking order was drawn before the debate, so beginning their 1-minute opening remarks is Elizabeth Clark. Ms. Clark.
During my term on council, the region's enhanced our homelessness services and added to our affordable housing stock. We've increased and protected our funding of dental and vision care for our most vulnerable residents. We've expanded public transit and frozen fare increases. And we've created new childcare spaces and eliminated our childcare subsidy wait list. We protected our green belt. We've cut the amount of waste going to our landfill by more than 50%. We've met our previous greenhouse gas emissions reduction target, and we've approved an ambitious new target. We've created a new economic development corporation, which has attracted $74 million in new business investment already. We've worked with the province to gain a commitment to bring two-way all-day GO service to the region by 2024. And we've done all this while keeping property tax increases below 3% per year and maintaining a AAA Moody's credit rating. We've accomplished a lot, and I'm proud of the role I've played.
Thank you very much. Mr. Galloway.
Thanks, Dan. Good day. Thanks to Rogers for hosting this opportunity for the candidates running for the 4 Kitchener seats on Regional Council to put forward their qualifications and priorities. And kudos to all my fellow candidates for putting your name forward for this elected office. With the retirement of Ken Sealing, Regional Council is at a pivotal point. The new regional chair will need members of council with knowledge and experience to assist her or him. I have been fortunate to represent Kitchener on Regional Council and will bring to the council table the knowledge on how to get things done collaboratively with my fellow councillors from across the region. In addition to all regionally provided services, my 3 main priorities for the next term of office is increasing affordable housing, expanding active transportation infrastructure, and the integration of conventional and rapid transit. Our community is growing quickly, and I will continue to advocate for sustainable development and fiscal responsibility. I look forward to the question and answer portion of today's program. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The regional tier has been in place for 45 years, since my days at University of Waterloo. We've adapted well so far to remarkable change, and we're best identified as a region. That said, many constituents are still unclear how things mesh. Going forward, the interface needs updating, though representative change has been slow. Now is that opportunity. We're being challenged in areas of traditional and social infrastructure, development, and environment. Now, we need now to be smart and accountable. The 2-tier conversation must be productive, inclusive, and efficient. We need to be wary of 2 things: a stand-your-ground attitude on the left and the right that's divisive, and silo thinking that impairs coordinating approaches. I'm an analytical centrist and willing to collaborate to get things done.
Thank you very much. Ms. Mazhar.
Thank you. I'm extremely humbled to be standing here today as someone who made Kitchener their home nearly 18 years ago. As a newly arrived immigrant, I'm grateful for 17 plus years of a very successful career in the local not-for-profit sector and for an equally long time serving the community in many formal and informal leadership roles. My love for this community has made me passionate about the challenges facing our community, as well as the opportunities that arise when we work together to address these challenges. I'm running because, like you, I also want a vibrant, diversified, and innovative economy, housing that is affordable for all income levels, a public transit system that can keep vehicles off the road, and a community where everyone feels belonged and welcomed, and decision-making that is fiscally responsible, socially compassionate, and environmentally sustainable. And I'm running because I firmly believe that our community will benefit immensely from having a council that is more reflective of the community that it serves. I invite you to learn more about me by visiting my website, faziamazhar.ca.
Thank you very much. Mr. Harris.
Well, good evening. I'd like to welcome online viewers to tonight's Regional Council debate for the Kitchener candidates. Of course, thank Rogers for hosting this important discussion and congratulate all the candidates for putting their names forward for this important position. I've had the pleasure of serving our community for 2 terms at the provincial level and would like to bring that experience to our regional government. As a strong advocate for the region, I had the opportunity to work on important issues like roundabout safety, better ambulance response times, critical infrastructure projects like the new Highway 7 and the expanded 2-way all-day go. I fought for fairness for our tradespeople and local contractors who are shut out of working on local infrastructure here in the region. Worked to combat the opioid crisis by pushing for new tools for law enforcement and continually pushed government to live within its means and provide value for taxpayers. If elected on October 22nd, you have my commitment to continue to work hard on your behalf. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lorenz.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Jeff Lorenz, and I'm currently your elected representative at the region of Waterloo, proudly representing you, the citizens of Kitchener. I'm a lifelong resident of Kitchener. I have grown up here, I've raised my children here, and now I have 5 grandchildren living in the region of Waterloo. I'm employed full-time as a property manager for several commercial properties. I also own my own small business. In 1988, I was elected to City Council, where I was involved in building Kitchener City Hall, regional headquarters, and many of the current community centers, libraries, and other city facilities that are well used today. So today I'm asking for your support. Being a regional councillor is not a stepping stone move to a future career for me. I have worked hard in our community over the last 30 years and would like to continue my role as a community builder moving forward. I feel that now at this time of significant change, experience matters. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Ted Martin, and I'm looking to represent Kitchener on Regional Council. I've long worked in the local high-tech sector as a software developer, continuous improvement champion, and team leader. I've served you on the school board, where I have a track record of listening to and helping constituents, of standing up for our students, a track record of helping find solutions to problems and finding better ways of accomplishing our goals. I'm running for region now because I want to make it better. Many of you have probably had the experience of meeting new people here and realizing that you have friends in common. That's because Waterloo Region is really a small town. Now our population is growing rapidly, but if growth is handled properly, we can gain big city convenience, things like cultural and recreational opportunities, an even more vibrant arts scene, a world-class healthcare and social services, while maintaining our hometown feel.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. And Ms. Williams.
Hello, and thank you for having me. My name is Carrie Williams. I was born in Kitchener, educated in Waterloo, and in my 33 years, I've come to appreciate where this community has been and where it is going. Here are some of the things I value: smart growth, new ideas, building relationships. I believe our heritage is important, but so is development and our collective well-being. I think what this region needs to continue is to continue to build on our past successes and the bold initiatives past councils have undertaken. But we need to keep pushing for progress in a balanced and responsible way. I don't want to change the way we do taxes, but I do want better outcomes for our community and our most vulnerable citizens. We need to do better when it comes to alleviating poverty, affordable housing, infrastructure, and attracting and growing businesses. We need development, but we need to do it in a way that preserves our values, our history, our wealth, and our environment. So why am I running? As a young professional mother with a master's degree in political science, I have a perspective that is needed in this community. I will be dedicated to serving the public full-time so that I will be able to vote on issues without being excused for conflicts of interest. Let's work together and make this region a prosperous, welcoming home that we can be proud to live in and work in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Williams, and all the candidates. For the next segment, each candidate will have an opportunity to answer a number of questions, and they'll be provided with a 1-minute opportunity to do so. For the first question of this portion of the debate, we go to Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce Vice President Art Sinclair.
All municipalities across Canada have been facing infrastructure challenges in the last number of years. That is, building roads, water mains, sewers, and other necessary structures that businesses and residents require on a daily basis. Do you support using property tax increases to finance current and future infrastructure requirements? And if not, what would you propose as an alternative revenue source?
And Mr. Galloway, you'll get the first crack at the response.
Okay, well, thanks very much for the question. Art. I think there needs to be a mix in terms of the funding for physical infrastructure. Property taxes certainly do support transportation, roads, transit, et cetera. But we also need to lobby the provincial government for more gas tax revenues, and the federal government equally. Municipalities have an infrastructure crisis, an infrastructure deficit, which is well known. And AMO and the FCM have been working very diligently to lobby the province and the federal government for additional infrastructure funding for municipalities, because property taxes, being as regressive as they are, cannot be the only source for supporting physical infrastructure. So we do need the cooperation and the benefit of additional sources of revenue from those senior levels of government.
Thank you. Mr. Hiller.
I have to agree. Cannot be simply based on taxes as it is. We must approach the higher levels of governance to access funds, and if not that, private enterprise. 3 Ps, I think, is very much appropriate in this day and age. And as far as increases in taxes, we have already seen it rather substantially locally in regard to water services in this community. And in there, we have been proactive in keeping our services safe and reliable.
Your response, Ms. Massar.
There's no question that whoever I talk to in this community, they like the services that they receive and are very high quality and are very appreciative of the services. At the same time, the question about how are we going to continue to fund these services without raising taxes is always on people's mind. I would say that it's fair to say that most people that I talk to are okay with a reasonable tax increase as long as it's under the inflation rate. But at the same time, as other candidates have said before, we really have to look at other revenue sources, including provincial and federal government. And at this time of challenge with the change in the provincial government, we might have to look at other bold decisions, other ideas. There might be an idea around some kind of social enterprise, fee for service or something. But what I'm hoping that we look beyond what we have always thought about potential sources of funding our services.
Mr. Harris, your insight.
Well, thanks, Art, for the question. Of course, infrastructure, new and old, is critical, especially here in the region with our economy growing the way that it is. Of course, we can't just simply rely on property taxes to fund that needed infrastructure investment. Of course, additional gas tax revenue from the province and other cooperation and supports from the federal government are key to ensuring that infrastructure here is continued to be built. I will say that for planning purposes, this one-time fill a grant in and wait for funding doesn't allow local municipalities to plan properly for infrastructure renewals. So a long-term funding program through the increased gas tax revenue is something I think that we should be advocating for, including that from the federal government. Thank you.
Your thoughts, Mr. Lawrence.
Thank you. I don't know how many different ways you can answer this. I agree with everything that Tom said. I mean, we deal with these issues all the time. I think the only way you're going to have sustainable funding at the regional level is to be able to work out a good partnership with the federal and the provincial government. Of course, we have a new provincial government. We'll wait and see what happens there. But honestly, the property tax is the most regressive tax there is. And to be able to fund all of our infrastructure and to be able to plan on that is just, it does not make sense at all. Now, we do have revenue from, for example, it was mentioned water and wastewater. Those are all user-based fees. So if you don't use a lot of water, you don't pay for a lot of water. And I think that's the kind of things that we need to look at. There are other ways that we can create revenue or at least have user pay. And I think the province has experimented in the past on toll roads, all kinds of different things. So I would like to see us move the way we are now, but if things change at the provincial level, we'll have to look at different ways of doing business.
Your response to Art's question, Ms. Martin.
Yeah, it sounds like everyone's already given the answers that I would have given, but property taxes are the main source of revenue for the region, and so we do have to look to them for our infrastructure projects. But we also do need to cooperate with and receive funding from the province and the federal government Because property taxes, as several people have said, are incredibly regressive. They do hit the households who can least afford it the hardest. So we do need to look for other sources of funding. Hopefully we can work out a good relationship with the new provincial government and find new revenue sources from them, as well as continuing to work with the federal government at funding some of those projects.
In your reply, Ms. Williams?
Thank you. I agree with everybody as well. I think that definitely it would be looking towards more provincial and federal funding for major infrastructure projects because, like they said, a lot of people rely on, they have a fixed income or they're young families and property taxes hit them very hard when they're raised. So I think that the path that we've been on with the under 3% or around inflation is probably a good place to stay. And then if there is anything big, then maybe if there had to be a one-time increase of some other user fees, then maybe some sort of consultation with the community members. But I think that we're on a pretty good path, and it's definitely, infrastructure is key because we do have aging water and sewer pipes and they need to be replaced, and that's, yes.
Final word to you, Ms. Clark.
I will add simply that the Association of Municipalities of Ontario estimates that for municipalities to actually maintain their existing services and infrastructure properly, we'd need to increase property taxes by over 8%. So obviously that's not a number that anyone really wants to accept. All other provinces in Canada do grant municipalities the power to levy taxes other than property taxes, and we need to be working towards that. But that being said, you know, our infrastructure is an investment, and we can't ignore it. We can't let it slide. So we do need to do what we can to keep it up.
My next question is, how should the next council approach the issue of supervised consumption sites? And we'll have Mr. Hiller provide the first answer.
Well, that's certainly the hottest issue going right now. Right now, the ball is in the park of the provincial government. We have outlined various possibilities locally, but we are waiting on the government to give us an okay as to whether or not we can proceed. What we have done, I think, is very admirable. We simply cannot disregard the fact that there were 85 deaths in this region last year. It has to be addressed. I think that the approach that we have taken has been good. I think that the idea of having safe consumption sites is the right move, not only to address deaths, but to also address the underlying situations, the underlying problem of drug abuse.
What's your position, Ms. Mazhar?
Obviously, I'm also in favor of supervised consumption sites and agree with everything that Tom has said before. I also would like to add that it's not that the new council would just sit and wait for the directions to come from the provincial government. We would have to actually really actively, proactively take this issue with the provincial government instead of just wait and see approach. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that we should not stop at just thinking supervised consumption site is the resolution to the problem that we are seeing here in terms of the opioid-related deaths. It's a complex issue, and we need a number of responses to be able to deal with the challenge in the community. So this is one symptom that we are dealing with in terms of the deaths that are happening in the community, but there is a lot that we need to think about if we really want to tackle this really complex social issue that we are facing right now.
In your response, Mr. Harris.
Yes, well, thank you. No doubt this issue is timely, and we're waiting to see, frankly, where the province lands on whether they're going to be approving safe injection sites or safe consumption sites in local municipalities. Of course, this discussion locally has been somewhat divisive. We've seen issues in Cambridge, and I think it's also incumbent that we listen to our lower tier municipalities and, frankly, community members who will see potentially these housed near their communities. That is also important to ensure that those communities get to have a say. It's imperative that we give our first responders the tools that they need to properly deal with this. Of course, we see frontline nurses working with our police to combat this issue, and also increase tools for our law enforcement to frankly deal with taking these illegal opiates off the street in the first place. So a lot of these factors we'll be waiting to see from the provincial government, but at the same time, region has an impact on how our first responders deal with this crisis.
Mr. Lorenz.
Thank you. I was hoping Michael might give us a little insight into how the province works and what the thinking is, but unfortunately, I don't think anybody has that. So you don't kid yourselves. I mean, we are creatures of the province. I think what happened to the Toronto Council shows you that if the province wants to do something, they just do it. So we've gone through an extensive process, and I just want to add to that, because I agree with what's been said in the past, on public consultation and trying to bring the public up to speed on why we're going through this, how the problem started, where we're at with it. And we're waiting to hear from the province of Ontario, and municipalities cannot move unless they have guidance and direction and assistance from the province of Ontario. But I've gone to South Riverside in Toronto, I've gone to Moss Park, 2 different examples, and I think people need to do a little bit more research and have a better understanding of how these operate. So, South River Park was like walking into a community center. Moss Park was not so good.
In your stance, Mr. Martin.
We do obviously have a drug crisis in Waterloo Region, and we need to work with all levels of government, with public health, with the police, with our school boards to address it. And we need to rely on the best advice of the experts for how best to deal with it. We need to provide safety and security for those with drug addictions and for the neighborhoods, and evidence suggests that safe consumption sites are the best way to do that. But we need public education and public consultation so people understand what the sites actually mean, and so we can place the sites in the best locations. But we need to do more than just that. We need to address the root causes. We need public health and healthcare professionals to assist people with mental health and addiction problems. And we need to provide training and pathways to employment for our most vulnerable citizens.
Ms. Williams, your thoughts?
When I was thinking about this, I feel like sometimes people are opposed to it because they think it's out there and it's not affecting them. But for every drug user, there's a family, there's friends, there's people that are being affected by their death and by their loss. So when we're thinking about it in terms of a community, what we should be doing is continuing with the plan as we have been doing it, because we are close to the final stages. Personally, the people that I've been talking to are they're not opposed to the sites. It was mostly just the locations that they were having a problem with, because they realize we do have a problem and that we need to address it. So it's very unfortunate that the Ontario government isn't giving us any direction or any concrete answers. So what I think we should do is definitely continue with the plan, have it in place in case something changes, and once we know for sure. And then if not, we should be increasing some of the supports for the current strategies that we already have in case the funding doesn't come through. Thank you.
And Ms. Clark, your position?
I think any response to a crisis such as we're having has to involve all 4 pillars, which is prevention and treatment and policing and harm reduction. We talk about harm reduction because we're a board of public health, and harm reduction is our mandate. The other things are not so much. And supervised consumption services are the ultimate harm reduction method. Also, as a public health agency, our primary responsibility has to be to save human lives if we have the means and if we have the power to do that. And we have the means. 2 weeks ago, there was a letter published by 120 health agencies in Canada, including the Canadian Medical Association, and it confirmed unequivocally that supervised consumption services do save lives, and that the delay in getting them in place in Ontario is costing lives. I think we have the means, we know what it is. If we turn out not to have the power because the province rules that way, I don't think we should give up.
In your perspective, Mr. Galloway, as well.
Well, thanks for the question. The Waterloo Region Integrated Drug Strategy, as Elizabeth alluded to, has 4 pillars, and harm reduction, which the supervised injection sites comes out of, is but one of those pillars. The other 3 pillars are equally important to deal with this issue, this really terrible issue in our community and across the province, indeed, in a comprehensive way. I'm very proud that our police service was one of the very first services in the province of Ontario to equip the officers with a naloxone. That was a kind of a bold decision that we made to assist in this particular problem. And our Crime Prevention Council, which is the author, more or less, of the integrated drug strategy, has really been pushing this harm reduction agenda, which I support. Now, it's not easy for people to understand, not easy for them to accept, and we do need to do a better job in community consultation, particularly in terms of where the locations may end up being, if and when we get approval from the province.
Thank you for all those responses. We turn our focus now to transportation in the region, and specifically with LRT service on the horizon. What is your vision for the future of transportation in Kitchener? And we'll begin with Ms. Mashar.
So my vision for the public transit in our community is quite a few things. So we have to have accessible all-season trails and bike lanes, and a smart plan for active infrastructure, affordable fares. That's very, very important. I know that region is already doing a study, which is really a great thing to do, and a reliable public transit system that connects community members with service and opportunities. And that has also started to happen as we see more and more employment opportunities and housing build closer to the line. Champions of public transit, this is one point that I want to really emphasize on. We need, more than ever, we need people who can champion the cause of public transit, and instead of putting it to the community as something which we need for people who may not be able to afford moving around in other ways, we have to be championing the cause and making it one of the things that our community takes great pride in. And the last thing that I wanted to say is we really want to make sure that there is expanded access to public transit through offering subsidies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Thank you for the question. Public transit, obviously very key to our local economy. Of course, we are coming up to the completion of the LRT and ensuring that taxpayers get the best bang for their buck with regards to their investment in the LRT will be to ensure that the most people ride the system, including a good feeder bus system to ensure that that is well utilized. We can't forget about access into the GTA, people coming in from or outside of the region in the morning to Kitchener and Waterloo to take that system to work, ensuring two-way all-day go. There's pressure there to remain to see that come to fruition. But we can't forget our road infrastructure as well to ensure that people, goods and services are moving freely to and from our region. And that could mean potentially looking at another exit off the 401 into the region, knowing that we're experiencing significant gridlock each and every day here in the region.
Mr. Lawrence.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the question. So I'm a member of the Active Transportation Committee for the for Regional Council, and we have a number of experts in transportation, bikers, all kinds of different people. I think when you talk about a public transit and you talk about integrated systems, it's a little different. I mean, I think people have to be educated on how to take buses. LRT, once it's up and running, we need to be able to feed that system, and we need to be able to convince people that there is a way that the system will work for them. And I think we have a long way to go on that. There's a lot of suburbs in the city of Kitchener that people just don't seem to be believed. So, excuse me. We're implementing iExpress buses. We're building, when we redo regional roads, we're putting in segregated lanes. We're adding multi-transit or trail lanes, I should say, for pedestrians and cyclists. And I think that's the key, is to get people out, get them active, and get them to understand how it all works. Sorry.
Mr. Martin, your thoughts?
Our public transit system is at a crucial point. If the ION trains ever start running, we need to ensure that they are well used. It needs to be convenient enough to reduce our reliance on private vehicles and affordable enough for people living in low income. We need to build more bike lanes and walkways, and we need to align our bus routes with the ION and provide more frequent service on the routes that feed into the ION. We need to provide a subsidy program that ensures people living on assistance can afford to use transit for their daily needs. But we need to do more than that. We also need to solve the GTA commute, and we can't do that by continually adding more lanes to the 401. We need reliable, all-day, two-way GO train. Last year, I had a client in downtown Toronto, so I used the GO train to commute, and I didn't mind the speed of the trains. I could prepare for meetings on the way in and decompress on the way home. But what drove me nuts was that I had to leave incredibly early in the morning and I got home after dinner.
Ms. Williams.
Thank you. As a person who actually walks, bikes, uses public transit, and drives, I can see how disjointed a lot of the four methods of transportation can be sometimes. You'll come to the end of a trail, there might not be access. If you were needing to use a mobility device, it might be hard to get up on a curb. You may not be able to access the transit. And then from going from a transit stop to the ion rail, that also may become an issue, especially once the weather changes. So I think that we really need to focus on accessibility and, like everyone else has been saying, convenience and affordability as well, because if it's not convenient, people won't use it. And if it's not affordable, then the people who could actually get the most use out of it won't be able to. So definitely we need to continue with funding working, and I think we've done a really good job of expanding some of the bus to later at night as well to some of the industrial areas. So continuing things like that would be great.
Future transportation, Ms. Clark.
Thank you. I agree with much of the things that have been said. I think that public transit is probably our most important traditional infrastructure project that we're going to be dealing with this term. I had the privilege of sitting on the GRT Business Planning Committee in the last term, so I know that our plans for the next 5 years include increasing our transit, increasing our routes, linking with ION and adding 48 more buses. And I think that that's important for all the reasons that have been mentioned in terms of getting people out of their cars, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, protecting the countryside line. But affordability is also critical because the ability to get around in our community is really a problem for low-income people because our fares are high, the subsidy wait lists are huge. We have a pilot project going on right now looking at different fare subsidy models, and I really look forward to seeing the results of that study later on this fall.
And your thoughts, Mr. Galloway?
Well, a number of years ago, the province told us to plan for another 250,000 residents in our community, and the Regional Council set out to create the award-winning, actually, Regional Growth Management Strategy, which, as its cornerstone, or two cornerstones, has the countryside line and using transit to direct intensification, which of course we're seeing a great success in doing. So I really do support these transit options that we are putting into effect. The conventional transit now has to be integrated with rapid transit, and there's going to be some very significant changes in that regard to make that happen as rapid transit gets underway. But not to be forgotten is active transportation, and I think we need to establish a budget line in our capital budget for active transportation projects so that it's not an afterthought in some of our road projects.
And Mr. Hiller, lastly.
Yes, it's been spoken 6 times or 7 times already. Integration is key. You know, the hub that we are going to be having down at Victoria and King is going to be critical, how things evolve into the future. That will pull in GO Transit. That is critical. Two-way, all day. That is absolutely needed. The whole problem that I see is providing access to the hub. And what that really means is that we have to provide, through Grand River Transit, ways that people from the suburbs can get into the core spine of the LRT. In addition, we need to focus on something down the road, down the future. Autonomous vehicles will be something to look at that we will have to integrate to.
So from transportation, we now steer our discussion to another question presented by Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce Vice President Art Sinclair.
Income support programs are primarily the responsibility of the region of Waterloo. However, both levels of government locally have an interest in addressing poverty issues. Minister of Community and Social Services Lisa MacLeod recently announced that the provincial government is terminating the Basic Income Pilot Project. Do you agree with this decision by the province?
And Mr. Harris, you have the first response.
Yeah, well, thank you for the question. Look, it's been widely known that there was a study happening, a test pilot of the basic income pilot project in 3 communities across the province: Hamilton, a city in Northern Ontario, and of course Kawartha. I will say that I think it was perhaps premature to cancel a study that was, almost at its completion. I think we're still waiting for information. Perhaps, Minister MacLeod has much more information than we do in terms of how that test pilot had gone up until then. And we'll wait for further, announcements from the current government. As promised, they said they would in the coming months on supporting people, especially in Ontario, in poverty. Thank you.
And your response, Mr. Lorenz.
Yeah, no, I don't support it. In fact, I think they have it backwards. I think you do the studies and you find the information and you make the decision. You don't just cancel the program. In fact, I really don't think I can support anything this government has done since it's been elected. So the proof will be in the pudding, but they've put a lot of things on the back burner, and they've talked about coming further with further reports and studies, and I just don't think that's a good way to do business.
Ms. Martin.
I definitely don't support canceling the basic income pilot project. It's something I've been advocating for ever since a pilot project was done decades ago in Manitoba and proved very successful. It was cost effective and it helped people get out of poverty. So I definitely think that it was the wrong move to cancel it, and I sure hope that they will reinstate it and that we can move forward with that.
And Ms. Williams, where do you align yourself?
I do not agree with canceling the pilot. It's a pilot for a reason. It's something that you put in place so that you can see what the results are, so that you can actually look at the research and determine whether it's good or not. It also kind of pushes us, though, to continue with trying to reduce poverty in our own area. So that means we will then have to continue with housing and providing subsidies, glasses, dental, small things to help the more vulnerable citizens. But my master's thesis actually was on conditional cash transfers, which were a grassroots initiative of giving mothers small allotments of money. And the children benefited so much. So I feel like it's kind of a big loss, even for a region, just to see how far that could have taken us to reducing poverty.
And Ms. Clark, your thoughts on eliminating the pilot?
My real thoughts? I think it was a foolish and ideological decision. I don't think it was based on any sort of reason at all. I think that the basic income is not only a much more humane way to deliver any kind of social service, but it's also a sensible one because it's a lot cheaper to administer. It removes a whole lot of layers of bureaucracy. It gives people money to put into the economy. It's just wrong on all levels. But I'm really concerned because along with that, the province has announced changes coming to OW and ODSP that I know are going to be a hardship for people, and they're going to be a hardship for the region too. We already spend $1.5 million more than the province gives us to provide dental and vision care to people on OW, and I know the pressures on that pot are just going to increase.
And Mr. Galloway.
Well, the measure of a community is often measured in its values and how it deals with the less fortunate and the vulnerable, and how we take care of people who have these issues is really, really important. Poverty is a root cause of a lot of different issues in our society that costs us a lot of money to deal with in the criminal justice system, in the education system, in the healthcare system. And so dealing with it up front as a root cause is really important. And I thought that the basic income pilot would at least provide us with information on its benefits, and its benefits is known to be present in other jurisdictions. So I wasn't quite sure why we are afraid of finding out the results of the pilot. It wasn't implementing the program, it was just to get the information on how the pilot would have worked. And I think that we should reinstitute it and get that information.
And your thoughts, Mr. Hiller?
Yes, the pilot program was unfortunately cut short, and it's foolishly done and simply does not reflect an accurate picture of looking at the future. The environment of today's world, work, home life, everything, is not like it was. We are trying to force an outmoded system to address current issues, and it's not working. So basic income is absolutely the way to investigate doing something differently. It's not a matter of simply compassion. It's not a matter of spurring effort. We have to address this on a long-term basis.
And I see you nodding your head, Ms. Mazhar. Your thoughts?
Well, I agree with everybody else. It was a decision that was made. We're not sure why. What saddened me is that I understand that it was a campaign promise that was broken, so it adds to the challenge that came with this decision. But I want to say that what we have done right now in terms of trying to lift people from poverty is very undignified response to the issue of poverty. So what we try to do is we try to send people who are dealing with poverty due to various different reasons, a lot of time beyond their control, to so many different places and so many different services, and create so much bureaucracy for them to just live their everyday life. So as Ms. Clark said, giving people income, fair wages is the best way to actually stimulate the economy, and really it's more efficient and more cost-saving method to alleviate poverty. So when we say that we grow together through having good jobs, but also have fair fixed income for people who are in need of those fixed income. Thank you.
Thank you for those responses. Now, as the Waterloo region continues to grow over the next 4 years, how should the region specifically address crime prevention in Kitchener? And we'll begin with Mr. Harris. Mr. Lawrence on that.
Thank you. Well, I think that is a really good question, and I thank you for it. I think as this region grows, I think our police services need to grow with it, and those are the kind of realities that are staring us in the face right now. I'm sure everybody's aware that the region funds police services, but we do not control. We don't control any part of it, any part of the operation. Councillor Galloway is chair of the board, but so I think that's important that we have that conversation with the Police Services Board, with the senior staff at Police Services, and talk about what are the real realities, what are the resources that we need to provide, and how we're going to provide them.
Thank you. And Mr. Martin.
And this is an area where we really should learn from the mistakes of cities who have gotten bigger before us. The region needs to avoid the urge to keep spending more on police services in response to any real or perceived increase in crime. Our police are essential first responders, and we need them to be efficient, effective, and provide value for money. I'm sure many of you have met Chief Larkin around the community, and I think he is setting the precedent for how policing should work. We need to free our officers to get out from behind their desks, out of their cars, and spend more time where people are, in our downtowns and neighborhoods, walking and cycling among us. We need to provide them with more training for working with people with mental health issues, with our more vulnerable among us, with visible and invisible minorities. Our police can be our strongest asset, an integrated part of our neighborhoods, where they can work hand in hand with and serve our community in crime prevention, law enforcement, and assisting those who need help.
Ms. Williams, your thoughts on crime prevention in Kitchener?
I agree with what they've both said as well, because I think our police services will be, they're facing change. And so what we should be doing is, like he said, looking towards other regions, seeing how they've grown, seeing if crime really did increase and what types of crimes. But one of the root causes of crime is when people don't feel included or they're struggling. So success, inclusion, and opportunity that we can provide for those citizens in our community will, it makes them feel more a part and involved. So then it actually usually statistically reduces crime in the area. So I think that, yeah, throwing a whole lot of money at the problem wouldn't really help, but being more strategic about what types of roles the police have in the areas that they're going to be looking to.
And Ms. Clark, what would your approach be?
After many years of actually decreasing crime rates, we have seen increase in the last couple of years. And what the Waterloo Regional Police Services attributes that to is the increasing problems we're dealing with addiction and homelessness. And as Brian Larkin has said many times, you don't arrest yourself out of addiction and homelessness. We need to be dealing with those problems, and I don't know if we have enough questions to get to those problems today, but if we can get people off the street, if we can get people into safe places where they're supported, where they have their needs met, the level of property crime that we're seeing will diminish significantly.
And how would you look at crime prevention, Mr. Galloway?
Well, let me first address the police matter. As a member of the police board, we have certainly given direction to Chief Larkin to take a different tact in terms of dealing with community policing, and we're very pleased with the results of that. But policing alone is certainly not the panacea that some people think when it comes to crime prevention. I've also been a member of the Crime Prevention Council for the last 15 years, and what I've learned there is that the root causes of crime are things like education, homelessness, poverty, and those kinds of things. And we need to deal with those issues, those root causes, to eliminate a lot of the crime that we see in the community. And so while we need to have enforcement, that's not unimportant, we need to put equal resources into social development programs to deal with those root causes.
And some of your ideas for crime prevention, Mr. Hiller?
Absolutely. The underlying causes of crime have got to be addressed. As Elizabeth pointed out, crime has made an uptick in the area. It is also absolutely because of new issues that are coming to this community that we haven't necessarily dealt with at the same level. It's becoming more intense, and it's seen every day on the news. The answer to that is, as Tom said, not simply more officers on the street. Have to address the underlying issues. In addition, we have to provide the police that are there with the resources that they need to go and do their job.
And Ms. Bassar, how do we deal with crime in the city?
I couldn't agree more with Elizabeth Clark and Mr. Galloway. They've already talked about the root causes of the crime and how we really need a balanced approach when it comes to crime prevention. Only policing is not going to solve the problem. I wanted to add this. What I see missing a lot of time from the discussion about crime, I see a lot of time we are focused on almost like one kind of crime, which is committed by, rightly or wrongly, we think a certain kind of people. But crime is a lot more than that. Look at what's happening in Toronto or in on the broader scene. There is more to crime than only the everyday street crimes. So a couple of things that I want to mention is violence against women, including sexual assaults. That's a big thing, and I don't see these things coming up in conversations about crime prevention. I don't see things like, you know, hate crime and hate incident against sexual minorities, against religious minorities, against cultural minorities coming up in our discussions about crime prevention in our community, not that much. So I think we really need to be focusing on crime as a bigger umbrella and thinking about what kind of approach we need to make sure that we are including all of this in our conversation. Thank you.
I took the first word away from Mr. Harris, but you have the final one in this
That's
discussion.
okay. Look, there's no doubt as our community grows, there'll be further strains on the resources here in our community, that including especially of our police force. And of course, today is 9/11. We have to thank our men and women who put the uniform on to go out and protect the safety of our loved ones. I will say, having rode along with frontline officers on numerous occasions, I will tell you that you know, at times they feel they're stretched to the point where they don't feel safe. I know in South Kitchener, with the rapid growth, the coverage in some of those communities can be scarce at times. Of course, crimes today are more complex perhaps than they were in the past. We see, unfortunately, gangs moving in to our community. Of course, we talk about the mental health aspect of folks that these frontline officers are having to deal with in a variety of different magnitudes. Of course, drugs and the opiate crisis that we face here in our community will further put strains on our emergency service personnel, and I think it's incumbent on us as Regional Council to ensure that our frontline officers have the resources that they need.
Thank you very much to all the candidates for all those thoughts and on key topics really at the top of the headlines really in the region. We come now to the portion of the debate where we allow each candidate to provide a closing statement, 1 minute closing statement for each candidate, and we'll begin with Ted Martin.
I trust I was able to share my vision for Waterloo Region with you this evening rather than just a laundry list of promises. But I will make one promise. I will always listen to you and be receptive to new ideas. Because I'm not stuck on how things have always been done, I'm constantly looking for ways to make Waterloo Region better. We can do this by fostering our neighborhoods, ensure they have places to call home for everyone, from families with young children to seniors, people on assistance to professionals. Create a sense of neighborhood by designing streets that are safe and accessible for pedestrians, cyclists, users of public transit, cars and buggies, and are serviced by community policing. We can do this if we consider fiscal responsibility, social compassion, and environmental sustainability in everything we do. I'm Ted Martin. I will give you experience that matters and change that counts.
Thank you very much. Ms. Carrie Williams.
Thank you again for having me. I would like to finish by reiterating my goal of smart growth and new ideas to develop our city in a responsible and innovative way. Housing, transit, healthcare, social programming, waste management, protecting our drinking water, and countless other issues will all be important and require our attention and effort. But to me, what is most important are the people that make up our community, their jobs, their health, their success, and their well-being. I'm confident that I can shape the direction of this community to make it inclusive, vibrant, accessible, and successful. I will prove that we can balance sustainability and profitability, and I will focus on what will make this region better for future generations. I am Carrie Williams, and I want to work with you.
Thank you. Ms. Clark, your final comment.
When I first ran for election in 2014, it was with 4 goals: relieving and reducing poverty, creating a livable and sustainable community, and strengthening the local economy while using tax dollars effectively. I believe that the region has made progress on all those goals during my term. However, we still have much to accomplish. The region is facing an opioid crisis that took 85 lives in 2017. Occupancy in our homeless shelters exploded over last fall and winter, and the number of households on our affordable housing waitlist continues to climb. More people rely on Ontario Works, and almost 35,000 families had to access food banks last year. The recent change in the provincial government may put some of our plans for more affordable housing, childcare expansion and fee reductions, public transit and cycling infrastructure, among other things, in jeopardy. I believe my track record demonstrates that I have the experience, the qualifications, and the commitment to help guide the region through these challenges, and I hope you'll elect me to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Tom Galloway.
The region of Waterloo is the envy of most municipalities in Ontario, if not in all of Canada. We have a prosperous and caring community. Our community is growing, and we have an award-winning strategic growth plan. We are compassionate towards those less fortunate. We go beyond provincial funding to support those in need. We are attracting significant new investment to our community to provide good-paying jobs. We have a vibrant arts and culture community that adds to our quality of life and attracts business investment. We have educational excellence with our 2 universities, Conestoga College, as well as our 2 school boards. Our utility and transportation infrastructure is being updated, and yet we still enjoy a AAA credit rating that only a few select municipalities can boast. I believe I have the right mix of common sense, community knowledge, business experience, political experience, and commitment to serve Kitchener on Regional Council. I ask for your support on October 22nd. For more information on my candidacy, please visit tomgalloway.ca.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tom Hiller.
We need to be pragmatic, respectful, and collaborative. We're doing well, but have serious challenges currently and ahead of us. I will simply emphasize economic cycles are a reality, and government policy from above whipsaws us. We need to be smart and accountable. I will continue to keep in mind 3 bellwethers as guides: children, which are our future; mental health, a mirror on past and current stresses; and the pulse of an environmentally aware, participatory economy, the driver of our standard of living now and in the future. More directly, the focus will include the transit file, the GRT, LRT, rail, congestion, cycling, also affordable housing and drug issues, and underpinning all, nurturing a diversified participatory economy.
Thank you very much. Ms. Fazia Mazar.
Dear Kitchener neighbors, our region is known for innovation, and we know that diversity is the biggest driver of innovation. Diversity of experiences on council's table means conversations that are richer and leading to better solutions. Our community loses when our council misses out on the wealth of experiences and fresh ideas that someone like me can bring to the table. I'm passionate and compassionate. I listen and I collaborate. I take a stand and stand my ground. I lead from the front and I lead from within. I've served on committees and board. I manage a small business. I take great pride in being called a community connector by those active in community development, citizens engagement, art and culture, social justice, and interfaith and intercultural work. But most importantly, my success as a newcomer is a testament to this community's ability to trust me with responsibilities, whether it was my first volunteer role or my new job. Today, I ask you to trust me with your vote, and I assure you that I will make you proud of your choice. Be bold, be different, be Kitchener. Vote for me, Fazia Mazhar, on October 22nd.
Thank you. Mr. Michael Harris.
Well, thank you to both Rogers and the viewers for tuning in to tonight's discussion. Of course, Waterloo Region is one of the best places to live, work, and raise a family, and I'm proud to put my name forward for Regional Council. I've had the pleasure of working on behalf of this community for the past 7 years at Queen's Park, and from the discussion tonight, we heard that many issues pertaining to our local government will be impacted by the new provincial government. I hope to bring that experience, dedication, that I have had the experience over the past 7 years to the Regional Council table. For more information, I encourage you to visit votemichaelharris.ca, and on October 22nd, I hope I can count on your support. Thank you.
Thank you. And final closing statement of the evening, Mr. Jeff Lorenz.
Great, thank you. So thanks to Rogers. I really appreciate us having the opportunity to be here and for the viewing public to be able to watch this. So this really isn't a debate. It's just kind of us answering some questions. But I think they were good questions, but they are complex. All of this stuff that we're talking about today is just, there's no simple answers for anything. Very complex. We live in trying times. We have a new premier that wants to cut $6 billion, find $6 million out of the provincial budget. The last time we heard that, it was a long, long time ago. And a lot of it came out of municipal funding that was clawed back. So I think we have to be really concerned about that. Our regional chair is leaving public life after 42 years, Ken Sealing. So I think we need to think about that as well. We need some stability on this council. I know that having experienced and knowledgeable people that can deal with important issues in a timely and efficient way will be really important for the next term of office. So I have different ideas. I like to welcome people to go to my website, jefflorenz.ca, and get caught up in what I've been doing and where I want to go with this. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that closing statement, and I'd like to thank the candidates for participating in tonight's debate. Make sure to watch Rogers TV on the night of October the 22nd for up-to-the-minute local results. Thank you very much for tuning in, and good night.